Take a quick pause. Did you know that over 90% of you watching haven't hit the subscribe button yet? If you're enjoying this video, take a second to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps us bring you more gripping stories every day. Also, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your city in the comments so we can see how far our stories are reaching. Your support really keeps us going. Now, let's jump back into the video. I came home early that day, not because I wanted to catch anyone doing anything, not because I had some gut feeling. Honestly, I just forgot my laptop. That was all. A simple reason. I parked outside, quiet, the way I always did. I let the front door creak open softly like it always did. The house was calm. Sunlight poured in through the living room windows. The air smelled like citrus and lavender, my wife's new favorite candle scent. I didn't call out. Didn't want to interrupt whatever she was doing. I made my way down the hallway, past the kitchen, toward the stairs where my home office was. That's when I heard her voice. I froze. At first, I thought she was on the phone with her sister. They talked often, gossiped, mostly harmless stuff. But something in her tone caught my attention. Sharp, almost mocking. "He's just average," she said, her voice low but unmistakable. I mean, he's nice, yeah, but he's not what I pictured I'd end up with. If I'm being honest, I settled. Something inside me tightened. I didn't move. There was a pause on her end, followed by a soft laugh. Disappointment? Yeah, I guess that's the right word. Not that he ever did anything wrong. He's just safe. Predictable. Boring. No passion. No ambition. I feel like I'm married to a placeholder. Another laugh. My chest hollowed out, as if someone had scooped the air from my lungs. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, just listening, as she continued to talk about me, my job, my personality, my lack of spark. She didn't sound angry. She didn't sound upset. She just sounded tired, cold, dismissive. I should have walked away, should have barged in, should have done anything other than what I did, which was nothing. I stood still, turned around, and left the house as quietly as I'd come in. My laptop could wait. That night, I smiled through dinner, listened to her tell me about her day, kissed her cheek before bed, told her I loved her, and she said it back, like always. But something inside me had changed. A tiny fracture I didn't even know was possible. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, wondering how long she'd felt that way, wondering who she'd said those words to. A friend? Her sister? Or someone else? The next morning, I woke up early. Earlier than her. I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and I stared at the wall. I thought about our past, our wedding day, our first apartment, our late night talks, the road trips, the quiet Sunday mornings. All of it felt unreal now, like a dream someone else had lived. By the time she walked downstairs, cheerful and dressed for work, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her, not yet. Instead, I was going to pay attention. The first thing I noticed was how often she texted. She'd glance at her phone, smile, and type quickly, then tuck it away when I looked over. Not suspicious by itself, she had friends, coworkers, but once you start noticing, it's hard to unsee. Next came the gym. She started going more often. New leggings, new sports bras. She claimed she wanted to get healthier, said the classes helped her de-stress. Maybe that was true. But I started checking the bank statements. There were charges that didn't make sense. A new cafe she never mentioned. A hotel bar. I didn't accuse, I documented. I downloaded an app that mirrored her phone messages to an old iPad I'd stored in the basement. I told myself it was wrong. Told myself I was better than this. But every time I heard her laugh at something on her phone or watched her smile at the screen while sitting next to me, those words came rushing back. He's just average. I settled. The messages came slowly at first, a few from a contact labeled Jordan. Casual, nothing definitive. But over the weeks, they grew more familiar. Can't stop thinking about last night. I miss your lips. I wish I could wake up next to you. Jordan wasn't a friend. He wasn't a coworker. He was someone else. Someone she never talked about. Someone she was hiding. I read each message like it was a blade slicing me open. Not because I was shocked. By then, I had expected it. But because she was so good at lying. so calm, so normal around me. She still kissed me goodnight, still made coffee in the mornings, still asked me how work was. I felt like a ghost in my own home. One night, while she was asleep, I looked through her email. She had forwarded several bank statements to a private account I didn't recognize. I followed the trail to a hidden savings account, one I never knew about. Almost $15,000 slowly moved in over months. Money she had siphoned out through fake grocery runs, hair appointments, and small ATM withdrawals. I sat in the dark with my laptop open, staring at the numbers, heart thudding in my chest. My wife, my partner, was preparing for something. A future without me, maybe, or a life with him. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just saved everything. Screenshots, emails, transactions. I created a folder labeled Exit Plan. Each day I smiled, I played my part. But I was changing. Every kind word she spoke felt like poison. Every hug felt like a lie. I began detaching, quietly, methodically, and I began watching him. It wasn't hard to find Jordan. A little digging, a few connections, and I had a name, a face, and an address. He was a real estate agent, mid-30s, divorced, no kids. From what I could gather, he was smooth, confident, the kind of man who always knew how to say the right thing, the kind who knew exactly how to make a married woman feel seen again. I started watching his social media. I wasn't stalking, not really, just observing. He posted motivational quotes, photos of his car, gym selfies. Everything about him was curated, polished. I wasn't jealous, I was studying. He had something I didn't. Or maybe he just pretended to. I made a fake account, started following him, liked his posts here and there, commented once or twice under a female alias just to test his ego. And sure enough, he responded. Friendly, flirtatious. It didn't take much. The plan wasn't clear yet. I didn't know what I was going to do. All I knew was that I couldn't confront her until I had everything, until I had control. I started quietly shifting my own finances, opened a new account, set up a private mailbox, transferred just enough to avoid suspicion. She didn't notice. Why would she? She thought I was still the man she could talk about behind my back, the man who'd never stand up for himself. But I was changing. Each lie, each secret I uncovered made me colder, sharper. My heart didn't ache the same way anymore. It just beat slowly, rhythmically, like a ticking clock. I didn't want revenge for pain's sake. I wanted clarity. And when the time came, I would give her that. Not through yelling, not through tears, but through silence, through action, through proof. One evening she left for yoga class, but her car tracker said she parked at a hotel 5 miles away. I sat in my car across the street, hands on the steering wheel, watching her silhouette disappear behind sliding glass doors. No hesitation, no guilt. I didn't follow. I just sat there, breathing slowly. The final piece had fallen into place. And in that moment, I made another decision. I wasn't just going to leave her, I was going to haunt her. The following morning, she returned home before sunrise. Hair slightly tousled, makeup faintly smudged. She kissed me on the forehead like nothing had happened. Her gym bag dropped by the door. A fake yawn, a stretch, and a mumbled, "Class ran late, sorry." I nodded and handed her coffee. "Thanks," she said, sipping it slowly, eyes half-lidded. "You're the best." I smiled. She had no idea that the tracker I placed in her car had updated her location every 2 minutes the night before. She had no clue that I had snapped photos of her walking into that hotel, nor that I had a time-stamped video saved in a hidden folder. She didn't know the car rental history I pulled on Jordan showed several weekday afternoons where his showings conveniently matched her errands. She still thought I was the fool, the average man, the placeholder. But the difference now was I knew everything. I didn't react, not even when she sat across from me at breakfast, asking if we could maybe plan a weekend getaway soon because we deserved it. I agreed, of course, said it sounded nice. Even looked up a few beach resorts with her that night. Played the doting husband like it was second nature. But inside, my mind was working like a machine. Her birthday was in 3 weeks. I decided that would be the day. The day I'd give her everything she didn't know I knew. Her gift would be truth, stripped of all illusion. Not in a dramatic confrontation, no shouting match, no slam doors. just the stillness of a carefully laid trap. I started making preparations. First, I reached out to a lawyer. Quietly, discreetly, told him I needed a consultation. We met twice in a coffee shop where I laid out the financial records, screenshots, messages, and tracking reports. He said I had more than enough, more than most people ever brought in. She's planning her exit, he told me, but you're planning smarter. Then I opened a private storage unit, started moving a few important things there, documents, keepsakes, backups of all the files. I even packed a small duffel bag of clothes just in case. I began withdrawing emotionally at home, slowly but deliberately. Nothing obvious, just enough that if she was looking for signs, she might see the faint outlines of disinterest. The texts from her became slightly more frequent. I think she sensed something, some shift. Once or twice, she asked if I was okay. Just tired, I'd say. Work's been busy. She didn't press. Then came the day I followed her. I told her I was working late. She said she was going to grab dinner with a co-worker. I waited 30 minutes, then got in my car and drove to the restaurant where her phone GPS had landed. But she wasn't there. She was 2 blocks away, parked in a shadowed side street, sitting in Jordan's passenger seat. I kept a safe distance, parked just behind a delivery van. I watched them laugh. She leaned over and kissed him. It wasn't a quick kiss. It was deliberate, intimate, the kind of kiss that came from familiarity, not impulse. They sat there for a while, talking, smiling. Then his hand brushed her leg. I turned the key in my ignition and drove away. The image seared into my brain. I didn't need to see more. I didn't need to follow them. That was the final nail. Back home, I made a list. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. Step 1. Gather everything in one place. Step 2. Remove myself from shared accounts. Step 3. Cancel the birthday trip she didn't know I'd booked and repurpose the reservation. Step 4. Schedule delivery of a printed envelope to her office with all the evidence on her birthday at noon. Step 5. Leave the house early that morning and never return. Cold, clean, no drama, no mess. But that wasn't enough, because there was still him, Jordan, the man she whispered to behind my back, the man who slid into a life he didn't build. He didn't deserve a confrontation either. He deserved something better, exposure. So I created another folder, one just for him. Screenshots of their messages, hotel bookings in his name, geolocation timestamps, even a fake email from a concerned husband detailing how an anonymous tip had come across a real estate client's inbox. Nothing threatening, just clarifying. Let the people around him draw their own conclusions. I scheduled the email to send the same day as her envelope delivery, 12 noon, right when she'd be opening hers. All I had to do was wait. But waiting wasn't easy. There were nights where she curled into me like she used to. Nights when we'd laughed watching old movies. I'd look at her and see pieces of the woman I fell in love with, fragments of the life we built. And part of me ached. Not because I wanted her back, but because it was all built on sand. I was grieving someone who hadn't really existed. One afternoon, I found a notebook she'd left out. Inside were little doodles, lists of goals, even quotes about finding joy again. I realized she was building a future without me, and she didn't even feel guilty about it. She thought she deserved it. And maybe she did. But not like this. 2 days before her birthday, she sat across from me at dinner and asked, "Do you still love me?" I looked up from my plate, careful not to flinch. "Of course," I said. She smiled, relieved. "I don't know, you've just been distant lately. I was starting to worry." "Don't," I said. She reached across the table and held my hand. "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." And for a split second, I almost cracked. Almost told her everything. Almost begged her to stop lying, not just to me, but to herself. But I didn't, because I wanted her to understand what she'd thrown away after it was gone, not before. Her birthday came on a Thursday. She had the day off, so I left early, said I had meetings. I kissed her goodbye, handed her a card with a generic message, and watched her wave from the porch, coffee in hand, wearing a robe and slippers. By 10 a.m., I had everything I needed loaded in my car. At 11:45, the delivery driver texted confirmation that the envelope had been dropped off at her office desk. Inside was everything: dates, texts, images, bank transfers, no threats, no notes, just truth. At 12 o'clock, the scheduled email to Jordan was sent. I turned off my phone, and just like that, I was gone. No note, no warning. I didn't give her the courtesy of an argument. Didn't hand her a scene she could rewrite in her mind as mutual or amicable. I simply vanished from her version of the story. Later that night, I checked into a small beach cottage 4 hours away. I sat on the porch, the ocean rumbling in the distance, and for the first time in months, I breathed freely. I imagined her face when she opened the envelope. I imagined Jordan reading his email, his carefully polished life cracking under the weight of exposure. I didn't smile. I didn't feel victorious. I felt nothing. Not because I was heartless, but because something inside me had been anesthetized by the quiet poison of betrayal. I knew she'd reach out. Probably already had. There would be voicemails, messages, explanations, tears, but I wouldn't listen. She had made her choices, and so had I. What she didn't realize was that love doesn't die in fire, it dies in silence. And I had learned to love the silence. The sun rose slowly over the coastline, casting long golden streaks across the pale wooden floor of the beach cottage. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the waves through the open window. The ocean had a way of silencing everything: thoughts, pain, regrets. It didn't care what you'd done, what you'd lost. It just kept moving, endless, indifferent. 3 days had passed. I hadn't turned my phone on once, but I knew. I knew that when she found the envelope, her first reaction would be denial, then confusion, then the slow, creeping realization that every carefully hidden lie had been peeled back, every secret, every betrayal exposed. I imagined the silence of her office when she opened that package, her eyes darting to the corners of the room, wondering if someone was watching, her fingers trembling as she flipped through the printouts. The heat rising in her face when she saw the hotel bookings, the time-stamped photos, the message history, the financial transfers she thought I'd never notice. Jordan would have received his own unraveling. The emails went to more than just him. 3 other recipients, carefully chosen: his supervisor, a mutual client, and his company's internal review department. All with anonymous tips, all with attached evidence and a gentle suggestion to look into it. No threats, just nudges. I didn't need to destroy him. I just needed to shift the ground beneath his feet. On the 4th day, I powered on my phone. The notifications came in like a flood. Missed calls, voicemails, dozens of texts, all from her. Some frantic, some apologetic, some angry, some begging. The first message read, "What is this? Why would you do this to me?" The next, "I can explain. Please just call me." Then, "You don't understand." It didn't mean anything. I was lost. We were lost. By message 12, the panic turned to pleading. "Please come home. We can fix this. I didn't mean for this to happen." And finally, silence. I listened to one voicemail, just one. Her voice was hoarse from crying. "I never stopped loving you," she said. I made a mistake. 1,000 mistakes. But I love you. Please come home. Please. Please." But she didn't sound sorry. She sounded afraid. Afraid of being caught, of losing comfort, of facing consequences. Guilt wasn't the same as remorse, and love, real love, didn't leave that kind of wreckage. I turned the phone off again. Later that week, my lawyer contacted me. She had signed the separation papers, no negotiation, no attempt to contest anything. I think she knew she didn't have the leverage to fight. The bank accounts were split. I took what was mine. She kept the house, or rather, what remained of it. The shell of our former life. The echo of a laugh that no longer belonged to us. I didn't want it. That house had walls that remembered everything. The lies whispered behind doors, the quiet nights I sat awake wondering why I wasn't enough, the scent of someone else on her clothes when she thought I wouldn't notice. Let her keep it. Let her wake up every morning and walk through the rooms she poisoned. Let the silence answer the questions she'll never ask out loud. As for Jordan, I heard through a friend that he was on leave. There were murmurs about a professional misconduct, and the rumors had begun to trickle through his client base. No one said much, but they didn't need to. Sometimes the worst punishment is letting people arrive at the truth on their own. It lingers longer that way, more permanent. No defense can erase suspicion once it's planted. Weeks turned into months. I stayed in the cottage for a while, letting the days stretch out quietly. I read books, I walked along the beach, I learned to breathe without waiting for the other shoe to drop. But healing wasn't linear. There were still nights I woke up reaching for her. Still mornings I found myself making 2 cups of coffee by habit. There were still moments, stupid, fleeting moments, where a laugh from a stranger sounded like hers, or I caught a scent on the breeze that pulled me back to our old life, and then I'd remember. The phone call, those words. He's average. He doesn't challenge me. I thought he'd be more by now. Those weren't just insults. They were confessions. She had grown bored of me, not because I was cruel or inattentive or indifferent, but because I was consistent, loyal, steady. She mistook stability for weakness, mistook kindness for passivity. But I wasn't weak. I was quiet. There's a difference. Eventually, I moved to a small city farther inland. Found work consulting, nothing glamorous, just honest. Rented a modest apartment, bought furniture piece by piece, carefully choosing every item. I wanted to build something new, something untouched by her shadow. People asked what happened. I told them very little. Just that some stories don't go the way we hoped, and that sometimes letting go is the only way to survive. I never spoke badly about her, not out loud. But inside, I remembered everything. One night, nearly a year later, I got a letter. No return address, no name. Just a small card with her handwriting, the same loops and curves I once knew better than my own. It read, "I understand now. What I had, what I lost. I hope you found peace. I hope you know I loved you in my own way. I just didn't know how to love you right." I folded the card and set it aside. Did I forgive her? Maybe. Not because she deserved it, but because I did. Because holding on to pain only gives it more weight. Because revenge, as satisfying as it was, didn't erase the damage. It only cleared the path for healing. And because forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door, it just means locking it without bitterness. In the end, I wasn't the man she thought she could walk away from without consequence. I wasn't the average placeholder she could keep warm while chasing excitement. I was the man who loved her, fully, truly, and when she betrayed that love, I became the man who let her fall into the truth she'd buried. No shouting, no chaos. Just the silence of a life reclaimed. And sometimes, silence is the loudest answer of all.